play it any louder, then it's getting shut down.
My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. Today is October 4th, 2025. We're technically doing our report for yesterday, the 3rd, as just a little bit past midnight. Here are the top U.S. news highlights for the past 24 hours. Federal judge blocked proposed counterterrorism grant cuts. Recent development. Earlier this week, a judge temporarily barred the administration from cutting $233 million in Homeland Security counterterrorism grants to several Democratic-leaning states. That decision remains active and impacts state security funding, referenced in reports tied to security grants and New York's restored funding. Trump reverses cut to New York City NYC security funds today. After criticism, President Trump announced he reversed a plan to cut $187 million from New York's Homeland Security counterterrorism grants. He said it would have been devastating to the state. Justice Department disbands DOJ task force targeting cartels yesterday as part of a broader DOJ reorganization. The administration is eliminating the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Forces and other offices like the Community Relations Service and Office for Access to Justice, 275 positions affected. Critics warn it could degrade cartel enforcement and civil rights mediation. Now, if you look at my prior videos, there was a mass grave in New Mexico. There was a young lady who was chopped to pieces. Her name is Emily Pike. And her murder had all of the hallmarks of the cartel. Donald Trump also invited El Chapo's family members to the United States. And I personally believe that the fentanyl crisis, Trump may have something to do with that, due to the fact that Republicans, MAGA, have been weaponizing the fentanyl crisis in a way that seems very disingenuous, from what I've observed, during congressional hearings. So it sounds like what I'm telling you out of the news right now, it sounds like Trump is attempting to or planning to weaponize the cartel. That's what it sounds like. In the United States against Americans. That's what it sounds like to me. Banking regulators plan overhaul of capital requirements. Trump regulators are revising bank capital rules, cutting back Basel endgame increases, trimming leverage constraints, and easing stress test surcharges. Banks expect lower capital levels, while critics warn of systemic risk. Refugee admissions cap being planned. The administration is reportedly preparing a 7,500-person refugee ceiling for the upcoming fiscal year, a steep drop from 125,000 under the previous administration. The policy would prioritize African or South Africans. FEMA withholds emergency funds pending deportation-based population data. FEMA stopped distributing emergency management performance grants to states until they supply updated population counts that include migrants deported since Trump took office. This affects local disaster preparedness funding. Gun export restrictions revoked. That sounds like weapons trafficking. The administration rescinded Biden-era limits on civilian firearm exports, leaving the country, to 36 high-risk countries, easing licensing for many U.S. arms manufacturers. Weapons trafficking. Donald Trump is weaponizing the cartel and weapons trafficking to foreign nations. That is my opinion, based on my observations on today's news. Government shutdown risk adding market stress. The ongoing U.S. government shutdown has raised concern that missing data will complicate Fed decisions and dampen consumer and investor confidence. Extended shutdowns could slow growth, fucking up the economy. FEMA's funding hold could impair local infrastructure readiness, with states lacking emergency grant funding, disaster preparedness, flood control, response capacity may be weakened in vulnerable areas. In international relations, okay, we already addressed that stuff, the gun cap and the weapons trafficking, Trump's weapons trafficking, Trump weapon trafficking to foreign nations, as well as trying to make it so nobody from foreign nations are able to come here. Legal actions against the Trump administration. States' lawsuits over grant cuts and deployment orders remain active. The blocked DHS Homeland Security grant cuts and New York's challenge over funding cuts are live. DOJ restructuring criticisms and potential challenges. The shuttering of major DOJ units, e.g. Task Force on Cartels, Office for Access to Justice, may provoke legal pushback, especially from states, civil rights groups, and Congress. For the stock market today, the S&P 500 closed at $6,715.79, a modest gain. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.5% at $46,758.28. Nasdaq Composite $22,780.51, down 0.3%. And here are some of the most recent U.S. trade and economic developments for the past 24 hours. Shutdown halts release of September jobs report because of the continuing federal government shutdown. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has not released the September employment data. This data blackout leaves analysts and the Fed flying blind about current labor market conditions. U.S. services sector stagnates in September. The ISM non-manufacturing services PMI fell to 50.0 from 52, signaling stagnation. New orders dropped sharply, and employment in services remained weak. A key Democrat condemns sudden end of de minimis tariff exemption. Senator Ron Wyden criticized the Trump administration's abrupt termination of the tariff exemption on small value international packages. If you own an internet business and you're shipping internationally, if you're shipping in or shipping out, mainly if you're shipping in, that's what this de minimis is. Pretty much my customers were not able to get packages because they were on hold because Donald Trump illegally slammed down tariffs in a way that was so abrupt that nations did not know how to respond. And in my opinion, this matter needs to go to the World Trade Organization. It's still not resolved. The tariff exemption on small value international packages under $800. He warned that the change is disrupting e-commerce, causing confusion, and increasing costs for small businesses and consumers. They need to be held legally accountable. And people should be filing complaints with the World Trade Organization. Trump considering tariff relief for auto production. According to Senator Bernie Moreno and industry sources, Trump may extend or expand tariff offsets for vehicles and engines produced in the United States. The idea would be to reduce import burdens for automakers assembling domestically. Expand tariff offsets? What is a tariff offset? A tariff offset, specifically the import adjustment offset in the 2025 context for auto parts, is a mechanism where an importing company can receive a reduction or rebate on the Section 232 tariffs placed on imported parts for a U.S. assembled vehicle. These offsets are calculated as a percentage of the manufacturer's suggested retail price, MSRP, of eligible U.S. assembled vehicles and are intended to support and encourage domestic manufacturing of automobiles. Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to my brain. I don't understand it, but there's that in case anybody else does. Shutdown adds risk to growth and monetary policy clarity. Analysts warn that a prolonged shutdown could shave off 0.1 to 0.2 percentage points of GDP growth per week. The lack of data impedes the Fed's ability to make well-informed decisions, especially given inflation and labor market pressures. And they're trying to conceal labor market data right now, as I just mentioned previously. Trump trade war calendar deadlines under spotlight. Reuters published a schedule of upcoming tariff deadlines and trade policy milestones to watch. These include possible expiration dates, enforcement changes, and key dates for bilateral negotiations. And remember, kids, the stock market is not the economy. Just because the S&P 500 or Dow Jones might be performing does not mean that wages are growing, jobs are secure, inflation is under control, or that people are thriving. And here's the upcoming hazardous weather outlook for the next few days by region. Desert Southwest and Four Corners, heavy to excessive rain and flooding risk. Monsoon thunderstorm activity is expected to continue in the Southwest. The NWS warns of isolated flash flooding and urban flooding in desert washes, canyon areas, and places with poor drainage. The tropical wave AL94 is also contributing moisture in the region. Storm interaction uncertainty because of the proximity of Tropical Storm Humberto. Forecasters note possible interactions with AL94 that may exacerbate rainfall in the southeast or coastal zones. Plains, central U.S., and Midwest limited severe thunderstorm activity expected today. The SPC outlook for day 1 through tonight shows no severe thunderstorm areas forecast. General thunderstorms may occur, especially in the plains and upper Midwest, but conditions aren't favorable for widespread severe storms. Day 2 to 3 outlook remains low for severe storms. For Thursday and Friday, the severe thunderstorm outlooks show no significant areas of organized severe weather expected. Possibility of stronger storms further out in medium range forecast. Areas in the northern plains and upper Midwest could see isolated stronger storms late in the period, depending on moisture and forcing alignment. East and southeast Gulf Coast, heavy rainfall and flash flood potential along the Gulf and east. The hazardous weather outlook highlights areas along the Gulf Coast where heavy rain may return, possibly leading to localized flooding. Coastal and marine risks. Persistent offshore flow will sustain the risk of rip currents, rough surf, and coastal flooding along the east and Gulf coasts, especially where tropical moisture or storms approach. Rockies and Intermountain West, warm, dry conditions, shifting. In areas like western Colorado and Utah, warmer and drier weather dominates today. A storm system is expected to approach late in the period, bringing cooler temperatures and precipitation, possibly even snow at high elevations. West, Pacific Northwest. Unsettled precipitation. The West, specifically Great Basin and Pacific Northwest, may see periodic waves of showers and thunderstorms over the next few days, tied to Pacific frontal systems. Heat and fire weather risk. In the interior West and Southwest, there is concern for extreme heat and fire weather conditions, where dry fuels and elevated temperatures persist. Here are 6 international news highlights hours. U.S. dismisses Chinese warning to its Hong Kong consul general. China's top diplomat in Hong Kong criticized the recently appointed U.S. consul general, Julie Ida, saying she could cease interference in anti-China forces. The U.S. State Department responded that diplomats routinely engage with civil society, reaffirming her role. Zimbabwe aims to re-enter global finance at a debt conference. Zimbabwe is pushing to realign with international creditors and financial institutions, presenting reforms and proposals at a high-level debt conference. The government sees this as essential to unfreeze investment and loans. Over 300 migrants detained in Libya's desert region. Libyan security forces reported detaining more than 300 migrants in the interior desert. This is part of broader migration crackdowns and the ongoing humanitarian crisis in North Africa. China's manufacturing rebounds, services slow in September. A private PMI for China showed stronger manufacturing growth, while non-manufacturing services / construction, for example, slid, pointing to mixed momentum in the world's second largest economy. Uruguay's left returns to presidency in smooth transition. In Uruguay, the left-wing coalition won the presidency, replacing a center-right government. The transition has been peaceful, with pledges for stability and policy continuity. Egypt rescues 28 survivors pulled from Red Sea shipwreck. Authorities in Egypt rescued 28 survivors after a boat carrying migrants sank off the Red Sea coast. This highlighted ongoing risks in maritime migration routes and the humanitarian toll. Also, there are several lawsuits. It looks like the lawsuits keep getting won. I would pay attention to Attorney General William Tong for updates on some of those. He seems to be bringing a wealth of information in the past few days. Also, according to Joey Contino, these are things that I've observed in the past few days. I know I haven't been reporting, so just kind of touching base a little bit. There was a Russian submarine or ship, I think it was a ship, that was seized by the country of France that appears to have been likely deploying drones, and there has been similar confusing aircraft sighted in a different region. Joey is the one who is reporting on that. It looks like the people on the flotilla headed to Gaza were likely apprehended by the IDF. The boat had Greta Thunberg on it, so it is likely that she is probably captive right now. And on the bright side, at least the boat made it so that people in Palestine were able to catch a lot of fish because it created a huge distraction. We have stepped into the government shutdown. I have been dealing with legal issues, so I apologize for not reporting. It is not fun to report on this stuff every night. It is not fun to report on it all day. It is not fun to monitor the situation, especially because I'm being personally impacted, and I really hate seeing the President of the United States attacking America. And if Democrats are the enemy, that is half of the American population. That should be cause for alarm for anybody. I personally believe that what we're dealing with is the Russian mafia, and I think they need to be stopped, and I'm very worried that they are stuffing our money that they are stealing from us, Americans, in foreign bank accounts. I'm just concerned about that. So I'm dealing with legal issues. I have to represent myself as my own lawyer. I've got a lot going on in my life. I'm trying to fix my health after it has been destroyed by what appears to be the Russian mob. So I've got a lot going on. I'm doing the best I can out here. And we will just get through this day by day. This concludes today's report, and everybody stay safe out there. We will see you later. Oh, you know what? One more thing. There was an entire freaking apartment building in Chicago that was raided by ICE. And children were thrown in handcuffs. People were in their pajamas and their underpants. They swept the entire building, ripped everybody out of bed. This needs to stop. And if you're still shopping at Amazon, you are part of the problem. If you are selling on Amazon, you are part of the problem. We need to be boycotting, and I'm pretty sure that these asset management firms are behind a large amount of the market manipulation that we are witnessing. And I think that the tariffs are also an attempt at market manipulation on top of, efforts to obtain a shit ton of money to attack the American people with. And it looks like weapons trafficking. Shit's getting weird, guys. The foreign adversary sitting in the federal office of president needs to be held accountable. Pretty disgusted watching all this shit go on. And I gotta say, it is hard for me psychologically. I have to, like...
So the Olympics is great. And Johnny, for the others, you know, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup, too. And, you know, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. You know, I got both of them. I got the Olympics, and I got the World Cup. And I said, you know, it's too bad. One was in 2026, and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election, and now we won, so I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup, and everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, because MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA. Abolish MAGA. Fuck you, MAGA.